Hi everyone, my name is Jen and this is Bee's House of Plants, where we talk about all things houseland and home design. Welcome back. So today I want to share with you what is still on my wish list for 2021. But before we get into that, first I want to share with you some of the values that I have this year in regards to plants. I really took the time to sit down and write down what my values are, what my intentions going forward are going to be, and how I want my collection to look by the end of the year. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so my first value is that I want to be really intentional with the plants I bring into my home. I want to cut down on the number of plants I buy significantly. Not only do I just not have the space anymore, every single surface in my home is covered in plants. There is no more place to put plants, but also I feel like I was in such a cycle of just like always wanting, always needing, and always buying, you know, the next thing, the thing I thought looked cool, the thing that was hyped, blah, 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 and then bringing them into my home and either just not looking at them at all, not devoting any time to it, or just, you know, being disappointed in my purchases because they don't really fit the way that I like to take care of plants, and then having to purge them, sell them, get rid of them, give them away, and then repeating the cycle all over again. I love plants, but I do not like to devote all of my time to taking care of really fussy plants. And that even includes like plants that just need a ton of humidity, and I always constantly have to be refilling humidifiers. I also just don't really like to look at plants through glass or plastic or whatever. For a lot of 2020, I was really considering building like one of those IKEA greenhouses, which are IKEA cabinets that you like convert into a mini greenhouse. And I'm not ruling out that idea completely. I might still do it, but I think that, and I might still do it because I really like the results of what happens to my plants when I have like a greenhouse or a greenhouse tent or something like that, but I just don't really like the look of plants through glass. So I really need to really think about that and really reconsider my plant purchases. Okay, so my second value is that I'm going to be purchasing my plants for the most part locally and from US businesses. So I'm not going to be importing at all in 2021. I've never imported actually, but I'm also going to make it a rule for myself to not import in 2021. This is absolutely no shade to people who import, but for me personally, I want to make sure that my practices in my hobby are going to be sustainable. And honestly, like I'm just not that experienced with growing quote unquote rare plants, and I really have no business trying to be importing plants that are so not in cultivation that they can't be found locally and have to be imported in from like Thailand or Indonesia or anything like that. Like I really should, at this point in my experience level and in my, you know, collection, I really shouldn't even be looking at plants that are that, you know, hard or rare or etc., etc. So I will not be importing, but I will also be trying to make it a priority that when I am purchasing plants and when I'm looking at the plants that are on my wish list, I'm also either purchasing from local nurseries, individuals in my area, because you know, like people are always looking to part with plants within their collection, and maybe I can give those plants a good home in my house. And if you know those two things, if I can't find a plant within those two categories, then I will look into US growers, so companies that grow their plants in the US. Once again, absolutely no shade to people who import their plants and then properly acclimate them to then resell to the US market. I think that there is absolutely a place for that because it helps, you know, keep a lot of plants in cultivation, and I think that that's generally a good thing. But once again, for me and my experience level, I don't necessarily need to partake in that. Okay, my third value is that I want to be able to share more plants. I want to, you know, do more swaps, give away more propagations, give away more cuttings. I think that a huge part of, you know, what makes a hobby cool is the ability to share it with other people. I've been really lucky that I've been able to give away cool plants that people want. I'm kind of going to put in a caveat here to say that please very kindly do not message me on Instagram just asking for cuttings or demanding I give you a plant. I get a lot of messages a day just from people that I've never interacted with, I've never talked to, just asking me to give them a cutting of a plant. I want to be able to share a lot of my plants, but obviously I can't just give plants away to everyone who wants one. You know, like I have to also make sure that my plants are growing. We haven't, you know, built a connection yet and built a relationship yet. Like, please just don't message me being like, hey, can I have a cutting of your Monstera Thai constellation? To be quite frank, that's very rude, and I just delete those messages, so just don't do it. But with that being said, it is one of my intentions to give away more plants, which also means that I want to build more connections with people within the community, especially locally. All right, so those are going to be my values for 2021 in regards to my plants. Let me know what your values are going to be in the comments down below. And then with further ado, let's get into what is still on my wish list for 2021. I feel like in 2020 I was able to cross off a lot of the plants that I wanted for a really long time. So there's really not that many plants on here anymore. And I feel like also a lot of the plants on here, I want to be able to buy very established and kind of like bigger specimens of these plants or more mature specimens of these plants. So I'm also kind of okay with not necessarily procuring any of them immediately, but these are the plants that I am on the lookout for the rest of this year. I'm also probably not going to buy any more plants until spring because it's gotten very cold here in California, and I've been losing a lot of plants. So really not the right conditions to be bringing new plants into my home. But okay. So the number one plant on this wish list that I've been actively looking for the last probably like 6 months that I really want and will likely be the first plant I buy off of this wish list is a Philodendron glorious. The Philodendron glorious is a hybrid between the Philodendron gloriosum and the Philodendron melanochrysum. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It has, you know, kind of like a lot of the characteristics of a Philodendron gloriosum, but it is a climbing plant. I've kind of learned in 2020 that I don't really enjoy crawling plants. I feel like they just take up a lot of space, and I find them a little bit harder to take care of than climbing philodendrons. So this is kind of the best of both worlds. A lot of the characteristics of a gloriosum, but it's a climbing plant and it's more velvety because it's hybridized with the melanochrysum. Okay, the next plant on my list is a Philodendron Florida Beauty. So I think that for a long time I had the Philodendron Florida Ghost on my wish list, which is the version of the Florida that starts off really white, and then over time it turns green as it matures. But I think that what I really want is actually the Philodendron Florida Beauty, which is the variegated version. It's the version that has, you know, white and green on all of the leaves, and they stay that way. But I really only want this plant in a very mature form, when the leaves have like multiple kind of like lobes. I'll put a picture right here of what I'm talking about, because in its, you know, like unmature form, I think it looks a lot like the plant I already have, which is the Philodendron pedatum, because I think it's actually, I believe the Florida is a cross between the pedatum and another plant. I will either confirm or deny that in text form right here when I'm editing later. Sorry, editing chat. But yeah, I believe the Florida is a hybrid between pedatum and another plant. And so in like an immature form, it looks a lot like a plant I already own. So the Philodendron Florida Beauty is the one that I want. And then the next plant on here is a plant that I really want, have wanted for a very long time, probably over a year, but I don't know if I'm going to get. And that is the Philodendron El Choco Red. Not only do I not think that I'm probably going to get this plant this year because it is incredibly expensive, like $500, $600, you know, for a rooted plant at the moment, but because I've kind of heard that it's a little bit harder to take care of than a lot of the other velvety philodendrons. So I don't know if it's gonna happen this year where I'm able to get a Philodendron El Choco Red, but I really want it. I want it very, very badly. The back, ooh, oh, so beautiful, so red, whoo, but I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna happen. Okay, so now we are done with philodendrons. Now we're gonna move to monsteras. So the one on my list that I really want is the Monstera Esqueleto, which is the plant that is formerly known as the Epipremoides. It's the one that looks a lot like the Monstera Adansonii, but the difference is at first it has significantly more like holes, and also the internodal spacing on the Monstera Esqueleto is also a lot shorter and a lot smaller in comparison to the Monstera Adansonii, which means that when it is climbing up a pole, it looks fuller and it looks better kind of like stacked up a pole. This is a plant that is a new addition to the wish list, because if you watch my last video where I talk about one of my favorite plants for 2020, the Monstera Adansonii was on there, and I said that I didn't think that I liked that plant. And that's also true with the Esqueleto, is that I really thought it was very, very overhyped for a really long time, and I didn't really like any plants that looked frail or fragile, but now I do, and now I'm obsessed with it. So that's on my list as well. But if, you know, if I'm not able to acquire it immediately, I will also make do with my Adansonii. Okay, the next one, ooh, I think the next one is gonna happen. So the next one is the Monstera subpinnata. So the leaves on the subpinnata kind of look like palm leaves, and if you've seen a mature like specimen of the subpinnata, ooh, it's so pretty. It is so pretty. I think it also looks a lot like the mature version of a Rhaphidophora decursiva, and I have a Rhaphidophora decursiva, but it is very juvenile, and it also hasn't really put out like one leaf in 2020, so I don't think that's going very well for me. But the reason I think that this might possibly happen, meaning that I might be able to procure it in 2021, is that I think the last time I heard, Gabriella Plants is going to be growing them, and I love Gabriella Plants. It might be like my favorite company to buy from. Ooh, I don't know, but yeah, so I think they're growing it, which means that I hopefully will be able to buy it. Okay, so the next one on my list is the only Hoya that is on this list, and that is the Hoya polyneura. I've also been looking for this plant for a very long time, and I actually had it at one point. I bought a cutting of it in 2019, at the end of 2019 I think, or at the very beginning of 2020, and it had cold damage when I bought it, and I didn't realize it had cold damage. I just thought it looked like dehydrated, but then I later learned that that's what cold damage looks like, and it never rooted and it died. So really disappointed about that. And then I put in like, I was like put on a wait list for this plant at a local nursery, but they just never ended up calling me. So I don't know if they just like never got it in stock, or they were never able to properly grow it or cultivate it enough, you know, to be able to sell it to a lot of people. But I think it was like only second on the list, so kind of surprised about that. But either way, I really thought I was able to get another one in 2020. It didn't happen, so it's high on my list for 2021. It's also the only Hoya on this list because, once again, I'm very actively trying not to get into Hoyas, because once you get into Hoyas, it's a slippery slope. Okay, and then the last two plants on my wish list, I told you it was a short list. The last two plants on my wish list, I'm a little bit iffy about. So they're on the wish list right now, but I don't know if they're gonna stay on the wish list. And they are both Anthuriums, and that's kind of why I'm being very wishy-washy about these two being on the wish list, because I went on that whole rant in the beginning of the video about how I don't like fussy plants, and I've heard that Anthuriums can be kind of fussy. But I've also heard that the Anthuriums that I am putting on this list are kind of like the least fussy of fussy Anthuriums. So the one that, like, if I were to get an Anthurium today, the one I would want is the Anthurium clarinervium. I love the heart shaped. I love the veining. I love that it's velvety. I love everything about it except for the fact that I don't know if I am able to take care of it. But I believe that Betsy Begonia grows her Anthuriums in just like ambient room humidity, and I think she even has like a lower ambient room humidity than I do, and her clarinervium looks great. And I also know that people put their Anthuriums into LECA, like I've seen it done, and I've seen them like do well in LECA, and I'm more confident in my plants that are in LECA than my plants that are in soil. So that's also a possibility. And also I've been finding that plants that are in LECA don't necessarily need as high of a humidity level as plants that are in soil. So all of those factors, maybe perhaps I will get into Anthuriums in 2021, and maybe perhaps I will buy an Anthurium clarinervium. And then the last thing on my wish list, which is probably the one that if I were to take off a plant, this would be the one I would take off, and that is an Anthurium warocquianum, or the queen Anthurium. I just love it. I love the look of it. I love how beautiful it is. I love how long it is. Oh, I love it. But it's kind of, I've heard it's kind of hard to care for, and I don't know if I'm able to devote time and attention and to recreate the conditions that it needs. But I'm gonna leave it on here for now, just so that I can like think about it, wish about it, you know, all of that good stuff. All right, so that is it from me. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.